Thor said, we have every known cure for every disease. I'd like to take you for a ride anywhere you want to go. You'll see the inside of our craft.
When they had that shooting down there, he said clearly both sides were startled in the aftermath. The Greys said that they are peaceful species, and had the humans not fired upon them, neither side would have suffered.
This force that's out there that's bigger than anything is going to come towards the Earth and try to take over, and they want our military to be ready to help them fight.
Have your species assisted the development of past human civilizations? Yes, at different periods. I'm just trying to put some puzzle pieces together that people may or may not have eaten some cloned meat. The technology they're using for this face-to-face exchange came from the ETs themselves.
Space Force! Space Force! It's all happening.
The ripping and the tearing.
And it's like Thomas Jefferson said.
Aliens?
Who is your daddy?
Oh, hell no!
Crazy, crazy stuff, right?
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. All right, go.
Welcome to Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk, and talk is cheap, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dan Hohlfeld. Thank you so much for joining me today on the K2D4 network. We got a big show, ladies and gentlemen. I can't even say how big this is, but if you think you knew what was going on, I mean, think again. You need to hear what's going to happen today on this show. I got a former U.S. military sergeant coming forward to break down some very important history between two high-level people in our government. This was an exchange that he caught while he was doing some work, and this is huge. And he joins me right now, and his name is Sergeant Vilt. Mr. Vilt, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So this is so amazing. So who are these two high-level people in the military, in the government? Who are these two people?
Well, one of them is President Reagan, and the other one is Lieutenant General William E Odom.
So this whole thing, so basically to break the story down real quick in a quick nutshell, you were assigned to do some electrical work. They asked you to go downstairs in this building to look at a panel, and then the general was late on time, so you caught a conversation between that General Odom and Reagan.
Yes. But let me start by saying, the reason why I'm telling this is because General Odom told me that I could go ahead and share all this information and nobody would believe me. So I'm going to share it. And yeah, so what it was I went TDY to a location in Europe. I was working, and then I was approached by some beret. They asked me for ID, and they said, come with us. And
so
I was like, where am I going?
So when you were working, you were working on some electrical, you were just doing wiring for the housing and the military base?
No, I was swapping out some electronic components.
So were these old components and you're just putting new ones in?
Basically, yes.
Okay. And
they were things I've never seen before. But, wiring a schematic, no problem. You can hook it up, things like that.
Did you want to talk about your background real quick? We kind of jumped over
sure.
that.
I joined the military, and after some time I got a security clearance. And with that clearance, it just opened the door for me to be able to go TDY a lot. And I went all kinds of places and changed the electronic components and fixed some and then troubleshot other ones. And then it was just amazing. All the different places I could go and all the different things I could see. And it was like I could travel Europe and never had to pay to go. It was the greatest experience. But this one experience was the one that topped all of them.
So this is interesting. So the military doesn't hire electricians; they have to have in-house military electricians.
Oh yeah, they have electricians who are on site at every military installation, and they're usually the civilians that live in that area. Plus, they also have military electricians as well.
Sergeant Vilt is an alias. This is not his real name, so that's what he's going to go by if he ever does any future interviews, or if you're trying to search for him on the internet. Just type in Sergeant Vilt, and he'll come up. All right, let's break this down. So you're doing electrical on this base, and they just approach you. Did they tell you why they approached you? The berets?
No, they just approached me. I thought it was, I thought it was strange. They approached me, one in front, one in back, and they said, "Oh, we'd like to see your ID." And so I pulled it out, showed it to them, and while they're looking at my ID, I'm looking at their uniform, and I'm thinking they don't have any rank and they don't have anything on. They don't have a name, organization, nothing. They're just blank uniforms, and I asked them about it, and they were like, "Save your questions for the general." And I was like, "Okay." And I go, "Here's your ID. Come with us." So they escorted me down a little ways, and we went to this door that I was like, "Oh my God, I've been to this door every day, by this door every day, going to get meals." And here we are going in this door. I've never seen anybody go in this door, and we go in, and the first thing I noticed when I go in, I was like, "Man, there's a lot of military berets in here. Wow."
Can you describe this building? Is it a big building? Is it a small building that you went into?
No, it's a building that, it was a small building. It was like a little small metal building, and had a regular white door on it. And when I went inside.
So can you, when you say small, what do you think the dimensions were in feet, roughly?
I'd say probably 30 feet long and maybe 20 feet wide.
Okay, so real small.
Yeah, it's small.
Well, that's probably to keep people away, to think that nothing's going on in that room.
Correct. Yes, correct. And although I went in one door, there were two doors on the backside. So that's probably where everybody was going in and out of, because I never saw anybody ever use the door that I went in. So as I went in there, I immediately saw there's an elevator, and they also had a staircase. It was going down from floor to floor to floor. And as I looked over the railing, I saw beret every floor level, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" And then they started searching me, doing a body search and everything like that. And so,
how many floors did you go down before they started your search?
As soon as I went in that door.
Okay.
That's when they started. And then I went down a flight, which is like two stairs, two.
Before you get to that, how thorough was the search? Do you have to strip all the way down?
Oh, the first part was like they did this, like the policemen do. They do a frisk. They frisk everywhere, touch everywhere. And then a gentleman pulled out a black thing, and he put it over my body. And if it buzzed, they were like, "Open that up," or "Pull that out. Let me see in there," that kind of thing. And we did that. But it was the same thing. Every level I went to, they did the same thing. And it got to the point where I had to take off clothing, boots, tools, everything. And I was carrying all this stuff in my arms after a while. And I was like, "This is ridiculous."
Every level. So how many levels did you have to go through?
3 levels.
Okay. That's still a lot. I mean, that's like going through it'd be worse than going through 3 airport security checkouts, because those are not as bad as they used to be, but they still get annoying.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go down 3 floors.
So like as I was going down those levels, I was passing people who were, I thought they were civilians and clearly military folks, and they were all going about their business. And I thought it strange that every one of them I saw had their heads down, and as I came close to one, at one point in time, a civilian, I was going to say something, and then this one beret jumps right in front of me, and he said, "Keep your eyes to yourself." I was like, "Oh boy, okay, whatever, And then, I went on down some more, got searched again. And right at the last level, I said, with all this hand touching and feeling, do you think I can get a date out of this?
And
as a joke. And
did they crack out?
This hard-faced guy, he's like, he turned me around, he like spun me around and then slammed me against the wall. Like I was facing him, and he spun me around, and then I was facing the wall, and he pushed me towards the wall. And luckily, I put my hands out in time to save my head from hitting the wall. I was like, he's like, "Don't be messing with us."
Jeez.
And I was like, "Dang." And then he said, "Go ahead and get dressed." So while I was getting dressed, he stands in front of this big, gigantic metal door, the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he looks up and he says, he's getting dressed now, General. He'll be in a minute." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's where the general must be." So I got dressed, and then as I'm getting dressed, I hear all kind of like bolts being pulled back or turned or something like that. And then eventually, all of a sudden, this big metal door starts to open. And it opens slow. I mean, it's so slow that I'm able to get completely dressed and have everything on and ready to go before I can even see inside that whatever's in there. When I do see in there, I see 6 individuals dressed in blue uniforms, and then I hear somebody say blackout, and with that I see those 6 individuals at desks, and I see them unplug stuff from the floor and put it in a briefcase, and I see them put something in the briefcase. Also, it's kind of long, and then they shut their briefcases, and then they handcuff the briefcase to their wrist.
So backing up here a little bit, you said the door takes, in your report here, by the way, I've had this report in my possession for about 9 months now, folks, and I couldn't go forward with it myself because, number one, no one would believe me. Number two, this is right. Him coming forward now puts the icing on the cake, and now it's going to work. So you said in this report that it took 3 minutes for that door to open. Is that correct?
I said, yeah, it took about 3 minutes because, like, when I was getting dressed, I wasn't really paying attention to the time. But then when I was fully dressed, then I was like standing by and I was like, oh my God, how long is this going to take?
Do you know why that is? Why it opens so slow?
I do not know. That's just the way it was.
Okay.
It was just going slow. And it was a really thick door. I'm like, all I can say, it was thick, really thick.
Like a blast door or something.
Yeah, it was about, I'd say a good 2 feet.
Wow. That's huge.
Maybe more. I mean, I'm saying 2, but like, man, I should have measured is what I should have done. But, man,
yeah, you had your tape measure with them, sure.
I was like, dang, I go, this thing is like thick as can be, wow. I guess the only thing I could compare it to would be like, I once saw a bank safe door.
Okay.
And it had that kind of a look to it without the big old wheel in the front or the doorknob or whatever it is.
Right.
But it had that kind of a look, and I was like, man, that's what it kind of looked like. But
okay.
It must have been like 7 or 8 feet tall. It was massive.
Okay. All right, so you go in this room and they handcuff these briefcase. That's weird that they handcuff them to their hand.
Well, that's all part of it, because like this started out the whole experience. Because when those 6 individuals started coming out in formation, like in one line, one of them's briefcase opened up, and the contents of it fell out. And the contents that fell out was like the wires that were plug-ins, and then they had this like what looked to me like a typewriter, but it was small.
Can you describe these plugins? Were they like 1/4-inch XLR, USB?
No,
what are we looking at?
No, they look like something you would plug in the wall for the electricity.
Okay.
And then they had the other end of it was like something you would use for like speakers or headphones. You'd plug in. That had that one little. I don't know what
3.5 millimeter.
I don't know if that's the name, but it's just one thing. You'd plug it in. You can have headphones on and listen to music.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was what I was on that end, and then like the other thing was like. It looked like a typewriter, but it was like the smallest typewriter I've ever seen in my life. Okay. And they picked that up and put it back in. And so I said, trying to act like I knew something. I said, man, I've seen those before. But I was lying. I really never saw them before in my life.
Did it look like a keyboard from a computer?
Yeah. So we're in the future now, 2018, and it looks exactly like what I have on my desk. It's a keyboard. That's exactly what I saw all the way back during 1988. I was like, oh, wow. And then and the other side of the briefcase was the screen, which was, it took up all that part of a briefcase. So that briefcase was probably 4 inches thick. So that was all the screen.
Which is still pretty flat for 1988.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know the one I had, I don't even think I had a computer back then. And then when they came out, they were as big as TVs.
Right. Rear projection.
The screen parts of it, yeah.
Okay, so what happens next?
That was like the first thing I saw, and I was like, wow. So then, as soon as the door was open far enough, I went in and went to the right and reported and said, I'm Sergeant Vilt, and I'm reporting as ordered, and held my salute, and then the general saluted me. I dropped my salute, and then we began to talk. He just started asking me questions about who I am and where I'm from, and how do I like this man's military, and what kind of things I've done. And so I shared things, and then I've asked him questions. For like every question he asked me, I asked him a question back to get information from him as well, and it kind of was pretty good. It went well.
And he ended up actually kind of like to talk to you, and he kind of confided in you.
Yeah, that was what I thought was really cool, was because, like I said, for every question he asked me, I also did the same kind of question back to him, but I changed it so it wouldn't be word for word. And it was pretty cool. We got a good rapport going along there. And then he said, well, here, let me show you around and show you all the different things here. And we walked around, and he showed me different components and told me what they did. And he said, no, there's nothing that happens anywhere in Europe that I don't know about it. The instant it happens. He said, this is a facility that has everything you can imagine. It's the best place ever. He says, and the reason why you're here, I've asked you to come down here, is because I have a component over here that has stopped working, and that thing is what makes it possible for me to know everything that's going on everywhere. And I need you to look at it and see if you can fix it. And if you could fix that, I'll owe you one.
So,
and I said, you'll owe me a what? He said, I'll owe you one.
So can you describe this panel a little bit? Like, is it visual? Is it audio? What is this thing?
It's hard to say. All I could say was when I walked up to it, I was like, in my mind, I was like, I have never seen anything like this in my life. I don't even know what the hell it is.
Did it look like a refrigerator or something?
No, it looked like, it was, you look at a desk, you think of a desk, a wooden desk, and on the top of the desk is another smaller desk, but it has a 45 degree on it, and where that 45 degree is, there's all these electronic components, switches, buttons, lights. I guess you'd say it'd be like something you'd watch on television from an old science fiction movie. The computers they would probably show, and they had lights and buttons and things like that. That's all I could think of. All I can think of was like, I've never seen anything. Oh, or it could be like maybe panels you might see in the tower at an airport.
Okay. So there was no screens on this thing?
No, there were no screens at all. None at all.
Can you describe some of the switches on top? The lights, any of that stuff?
Well, like I said, it didn't work at all. So there were no lights. But you could see where there was lights. There was to be red, yellow, green, like an amber, all these little places where there were lights. There were just regular, they look chrome-like switches. Some were plastic switches that you could just toggle back and forth. At one point, there was an area that looked like it had a reel-to-reel, but that was further on down to the right. That I could I know what that is.
For recording.
Yeah, and they had the areas where it looked like they had speakers, like in your car, you have speakers in the door. They have all them holes. They had places like that. I couldn't tell you what was in there, whether it was a speaker or was it a fan. I don't know. All I know is I looked at this and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what it is. It had a big screen on it, and I don't know what that was. So I mean, a big screen like a computer screen, and I was like, I never saw that before. I didn't know what it was, and he just said, if you can get this thing working, I'll owe you. So when I said to him, so what do you mean by you owe me? What does that mean, sir? And he said, well, it means you ask and you'll get.
And that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, and I was like, holy moly, I definitely would like to have a general in my back pocket.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, man, I can use you.
So when you were looking at these switches, did they have any writing? Like, can you remember what they said?
There was no writing whatsoever.
No writing. Wow.
No None.
Would it be a simplified panel, or was it like complex? Was there a lot of switches?
It was a lot of stuff on there.
That's interesting. And no writing.
No writing. Lights, switches.
Well, I guess they had a good training program then.
Yeah, I don't know what they had.
Okay, so this panel's dead. He wants you to get it working, so you pop off the back.
Yeah, what I do is I go around the whole thing looking for screws to see if I could unscrew something to get underneath or get in there or wherever I can. And I end up going all the way down and pulling off a little panel at the back. And then I said, okay, well, it was just enough room for me to squeeze in underneath this thing and then shine a flashlight up from the bottom, so I could see the electrical components in the schematic. And I figured if I could find the schematic, that I could go ahead and troubleshoot what was wrong with it and possibly determine what's wrong with it or fix it. But no matter what I did, I couldn't find the schematic anywhere. I'm underneath, I'm like, and it's complex. I can't really move because there's only enough room for me to scoot in, shoulder and head in, and then one arm in with a flashlight and a tool. And I'm trying to there's all these wires under there, and I'm trying to pull the wires apart without actually maybe pulling anything off in case they come off easy, and look for this schematic. And all I could say was, from what I could see, I was like, OMG, I've never seen any wire configuration like this ever. I don't know what this is. I don't know and I can't find the schematic anywhere, because usually on most components there's a wiring schematic, glued underneath or glued next to it, and it shows you, open and closed circuits and things like that. And I couldn't find anything. I was like, I don't know what to do here. But I'm going to start checking out these wires and see if I can find out what has sources of power, if there's no power, things like that, So I know that the power is coming in from a wall, and I went and started trying to check that, and I found, yes, there is power there. So I went back to the component and got back underneath again and squeezed my way in far enough to get two arms in there. And then I was using an ohm meter and trying to figure out things like what's going on, where's the power not, how come the power's not coming in here? It should be coming in here. And I checked all kind of wires, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then the general said, hey, Sergeant Vilt. I said, yes, sir. He said, I need you to get out of there, get your stuff, and leave immediately, because I'm expecting a phone call in a couple minutes. So I need to get up. I've already opened the door, and your security is waiting for you.
So
did you
tell him at this point that you couldn't get it figured out?
Hell no. Hell no. I was like, I'm like, if I could get this thing fixed, I got a general in my pocket. That's what my goal is. So I got out of there, gathered my stuff, and exited immediately, and went upstairs the way I came and left.
And then he had you come back for the next day at breakfast. After breakfast, I guess, is what he requested.
Yeah, you're right. That's what he said to me before I went out. He said, I need to see you tomorrow after breakfast. I said, yes, sir, I'll be back. So then I did come back the next day after breakfast, and he showed me, he had three phones in this area there. Well, one was red, one was like a taupe-looking color, and one was green. And they were kind of big. I thought they was kind of strange. And I said, are these phones real? Because I've seen something like this on the Batman television shows, and they blinked on and off are they like that? He said, kind of similar. He says, one of them is for the president, one is for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and one is for the Secretary of Defense. I said, do they ring? He said, no, they just flash on and off. And then I would just pick up and dial a couple of numbers and be connected.
That's kind of my first question. Why wouldn't they ring?
You broke up there. Say again.
That's one of my questions. Why wouldn't the phones ring? They just flash. Why would? Because if they're off doing something or not looking up, they ain't gonna see them go off.
So you're getting ahead of it. Yes, you're right. They just flashed on and off. He said they flashed on and off, and then he would be able to talk to one of them, and that's all. That's what he said. I said, okay, that's kind of cool, And then I said, well, I better get over there and get under that panel and see what I can do. So I saw as I was going over there, he goes, oh, by the way, I'm expecting a phone call from the president today, and I may need you to leave. Okay, so you be ready. Don't put all your tools everywhere like you did yesterday. Just try to keep everything compact in your tool bag and just take out what you need. I said, okay, sir, no problem.
Yeah, and this is the next day, November 17th, 1988, and this is about what 8:30 in the morning UK time.
Yes, exactly. So I got there about 8:30. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I'm back under there trying to do whatever I could do, which was really nothing. And I would go from working underneath to climbing out and checking buttons and switches on top. And I said, if I could take off this top panel, this metal top panel, I could maybe do something there and work from there. So I looked all over the top of that, and there was no screws, no clips, nothing at all to give me access into this, whatever it was. And so I just said, oh, the hell with it. And I went back underneath, and just before I was going back in, I kind of looked over at the general, and I saw that a red phone was flashing. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means. I know he said that they flashed, but I don't know what it is or what. Anyway, I don't know.
So describe this phone real quick. So is there like a single bulb on top, or is the whole phone like translucent where it lights up?
It was remember the old phones? They're not really old, but
the rotary.
I'd say the old military black phones. They were dial. You had a dial on it. You go pull it around in a circle, and it goes.
Yeah, the rotary dial.
Rotary dial. Yeah, there you go. And so it was that kind of a phone. Each one of those was that kind of phone, but it was like 3 times bigger. And it was like they had a light in each one. They just sat there. They were like, the red one was red, and it just sat there. And then when I saw it flashing, it was like there was a bulb inside, and it would just go on and off, on and off.
Okay.
That's all it was. So anyways, I saw that, and then I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. And I went back to working on that panel. And I did that for a while, and I tell you, I was just pulling my hair out going, oh, my God, I don't know what's going on here. I don't think I'm going to get this. And I think if I can't get this fixed, well, darn it, I'm not going to have him in my back pocket.
And how long were you at this? On the second day?
I was at it. Oh, man, I don't know. I think I was at it for a while there.
Okay.
It felt like a while. And then as I came out, like another time I came out, I was just sitting there going, I was stumped. I was at the point where I was going to go, okay, I'll just tell the general I can't fix it, and that's it, and I'll just go about my business. I was kind of like pouting because I was like, darn it.
Don't want to lose that ace.
Yeah, I was like, darn it. So I kind of looked up over this big old desk, and I was like, and I looked, and I said, I saw that red phone flashing, and I was like, General Odom? And he was looking at something in a folder, and he was like, he didn't even look up. He goes, yes. I go, that red phone is flashing. With that, he closed up that envelope. He put it in a file cabinet, shut the file cabinet, and locked it. And then he looked at his watch, and he said, shit, there's not enough time. And with that, he said, this is what I want you to do. Grab all your tools, grab everything, and stick it under that desk all the way over there in the back. Do it now. Do it. Well, get moving, boy, get moving. So I quickly grabbed all my stuff and put it over about under this desk. He said, now look, this should only take about a half hour. I want you to grab that stack of yellow notepads there and those pens over there, and you get behind that desk over there and you stay down, you stay quiet, and you don't say a word, and don't even go to sleep. I want you to record everything you hear between myself and the president. Do you understand me? I said, yes, sir. So I grabbed those pads of papers and those pens, and I got my field jacket, and I rolled it up, put it down there, I laid on it, and I was like, I'm ready. And then he went over and turned off the light, and he said, okay.
There's quite a bit of room under this desk.
Go ahead. It's just a regular military desk. Yeah, all my tools and everything were under the parts of where the drawers are, and I was in the area where your feet usually go.
Okay, so you're pretty crammed under here.
No, I didn't think it was.
Okay.
No, there's a lot of room under a desk. And a military desk was pretty big. So anyways, so I'm under there, and I said, okay, I'm ready. And then he turned off all the lights, and he said, okay, what you're going to experience is something that is not in the civilian world and probably won't be for the next 15 to 20 years. And you're not to talk about it right now, but I'll talk to you about it afterwards when I debrief you. Do you understand? I said, yes, sir. And I was, okay. So then all of a sudden, a big old screen comes on, and it's like a projector screen, you know. That's how I can describe it. And I'm looking through this crack inside on the desk, you know, and I can see that there's a big old screen that came on. There's light coming out of it. And,
so is this a screen that came folding out from somewhere, or was it on the wall, or was it just projecting at the wall?
It was on the wall. You know, it was on the wall the whole time, and I never even noticed it.
Okay, so it's pretty flat.
Yeah, you could say that. And it was white. I mean, it was just white, and it was on the wall, and I never even noticed it at all. I thought it was a chalkboard or something like that, but it was white.
Okay.
Nowadays, I'd probably think of it as a whiteboard that you would write on with, you know,
dry
markers.
erase.
Yeah, exactly. But I never even paid any attention to it. It didn't stick out. But there it is. There it is. It's all lit up. And then all of a sudden, I see President Reagan leaning on the desk, and he's in a full tux with even a bow tie, and he's leaning against the desk, and he's speaking.
Can you describe the quality of the image? Are we looking at, like, does it look like just a shitty old projector, or what do we?
No, it was crystal clear.
So are we like 4K, like 1080p? That crystal clear?
You could, okay, if you want to say that, I would say it was. I'd say it was more like, well, it's as good as what we got today. So probably, yes, 4K.
Wow.
It was, you could see his whole figure in the room leaning on the desk. You know, his rear end was on the desk, and he was speaking. And then the general said something. He said, I gotta, hang on, let me zoom in. And he did something, and all of a sudden it zoomed all the way in, and you could see President Reagan from the waist up. And it was bigger than life. And I'm like, no way. No way. It's got to be like a television show, or he's watching a video. No way. Because, like, where's the phone? Where's the phone? How do you talk? How can you talk to him and you don't have a phone? Where's the phone? But I'm not saying this out loud. I'm saying it in my head. I'm questioning. Oh my God, what's going on here? What am I not seeing? Where's the phone? And then all of a sudden you hear the president say, "Hey, how you doing, General? Just checking it, see if everything's okay, and you can hear me clearly. Let me know." And then the general responds, "Hey, I can hear you. Everything's okay on this end. Are you calling me because there's an emergency or troop deployments?"
But this exchange there's a 30-minute or 30-second delay.
Yeah, there's a 30-second delay.
So you say, "Hi, how are you doing?" And then 30 seconds, then they'll respond.
Yeah, so if you could talk, you could keep talking, but you're not going to get anything until 30 seconds later.
Did that make confusion? Like, were they talking over each other at one point?
No, actually, they weren't. It was like they had done this before, probably, because I could see Reagan speak, you know, and then all of a sudden, after 30 seconds, through the speakers would come what he was saying, and then the general would reply back, and that's how they did, back and forth like that. And and for me, since I had to record it all, I was like, this is great because I can write down everything and I get a break in between whatever each person says.
Right, and that's why you had such a good transcript written up here with it a lot of detail on it, because you had all that time to do that. So my question is, with that delay and it's 30 seconds, why wouldn't they use just the phone?
That's because the general after me said, so where are you at, sir? You know, and he said, well, I'm in the blue room. And he says, they installed this device, which we got from our out-of-town friends, and everybody's been wanting to try it. So we've all had to sign up to use it, you know, and others have been calling people in other countries and things like that, where they have it over there, at military bases. And he said, and so I wanted to use it to speak with you on a serious matter. And I picked this time to do it, which is early, and I knew that you'd be up and around during this time.
So just kind of a experiment to try it out.
I guess so. And then 30 seconds
or is it
later,
actually more secure than their secure phone?
Well, we're getting to that. So then the general replied. He goes, "Yeah, I haven't even had my first cup of coffee yet, but it must be really early where you are. It must be like 3 a.m. What's got you up this early?" And then the president replied, he says, "Oh, we just had dinner with Margaret Thatcher, and it was a really wonderful experience, and we learned some things that are going on over there, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later here. Is this a secure line on your end? Because my end, I know it's secure." So I wrote all that, and then the general said, "This end is secured too, and we can talk freely." And then the next thing you know, the president says, "Okay, so I want you," like he says, "I do this every time with everybody." He says, "Just in case there's anybody listening, because of that experience I had with that congressman who said I could call him by his first name, but then the first time I called him by his first name in the presence of anybody else, he totally humiliated me, and I don't ever want to experience that again. So let's dispense with our titles and go ahead and start using our names since we're friends."
So at this point, when you're under the desk, do you have any light, or is there enough light in the room to see to write stuff down?
Oh yeah, there was that screen that I'll call it. I don't know. Let's say I'll say it's a flat screen computer. Let's just say that, okay? I couldn't tell you what it was. It was just bright as can be. When the general turned off all the lights and that thing came on, it provided light, plenty of light.
Okay.
And I will say that, like, when it first came on, maybe I couldn't see too well, but then I got acclimated to the light, and because the desk was down, the light was coming under the desk, and I could see everything I was writing. I had plenty of light.
And then, so when you were witnessing this exchange, could you see a camera, a microphone?
I could not see the camera. I could not see a microphone. No.
Okay, interesting.
But I do know that the general was standing. He was standing away from the screen. He was about 5 feet away from it.
Okay.
So yeah, I can tell you, yes, there was a camera, there were speakers, but I found that out after this whole process.
All right, so now that we got all the technical stuff out of the way, everything's set up here, let's go through this big exchange of information that took place here.
The president said, okay, because of that one time I got embarrassed, literally, for saying congressman's first name in public around others. I've learned to use all proper titles wherever I'm at until I know the line is secure, and then we can dispense with the titles and start using our first name. So go ahead and start using my first name, and I'll start calling you James, because I've known you a long time. And that's where he stopped and he waited. And then the general comes on. He goes, "That sounds fine with me, Ronald. Hey, I thought maybe you were going to call and tell me about troop development or troops deployments, or having something like that. What does this pertain to?" And then President replies, "Oh, well, that topic we've been talking about over the last several months, that deals with our out-of-town friends. That's what I want to talk about. I want to give you an update of what I found out, what information I've gathered, and I've written it all out, and it's pretty much grammatically correct. So when I explain it to you, I'm going to be reading from my notes, and I have a bunch of questions, and I really need your help to come up with some ideas. And because you've been in the military all this time, I need your help in determining some ideas." And then he went blank, and then the general said, okay, so hold on a minute, let me get my notes. And he pulled out some notes out of a file cabinet, and he said, okay. So the last thing we talked about concerning our out-of-town friends was, you talked about something about Majestic 12, something that happened at Roswell, the Holloman thing, some secret presidential administration, and the list goes on, So are we talking about any of those things? And then the reply came back, "Yeah, we're going to continue on from where I left off last time. And as you know, I went and started reading all past presidential journals to find out what I could find out about our out-of-town friends. Since I'm been given the duty of conducting the treaty for this time around, everything's on my shoulders. And you know as well as I do, I wish I could tell Nancy everything that's going on, but this is something I can't tell her. I can't tell anybody. It really irritates me because I tell her everything." And then 30 seconds later, General says, "Okay, well, I'm ready when you are. Go ahead and let me know what you're talking about. I got a pad and pen here, and I'm ready to write down things. So I'm all ears."
So did he actually have a pen and paper, or were you the pen and paper?
I was the pen and paper because I never saw him do anything.
Okay.
I could say to you that he had something on the table probably, and he looked like he was writing something. Okay. But I can tell you that after that whole thing was done, there was nothing written on that paper, or whatever he had there was nothing written on it. So maybe he was just acting like he was.
Okay.
Or he has a really good memory.
So there's a lot to cover here. Do you want to just skip to the juicy stuff?
What juicy stuff?
Right where we start talking about the aliens coming in? Because I don't know if you were going to sit and read the whole thing here, because
yeah, that's the serious stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. If we want to go there, let's go there.
Otherwise, we'll probably be here all night.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I made some bullet points here too, so I could just start off, and if you can remember what the conversation was like when you were there. So he's basically talking to him, and he said that the Greys have been here longer than mankind, and they seeded humans on Earth.
Yeah, he said that he had spoke to them. The cool part about this is he said, "Oh God," he's like, "Oh my God," he's like, "Oh my God," he says, "When I go into the room to talk to them, I have to put cotton balls in my nose, and I suck on like flavored spearmint lifesavers, because they smell awful bad. I want to hurl. The first time I went in there, I was like, oh my God, I was going to hurl, and I had to get out. He said, so now I've gotten smart and, plug everything up so I can't smell them because terrible. He said, yeah, so, we've asked all kind of questions, and some things they answer and some things they don't, but they said that they seeded mankind at one time. And that, we asked them more questions, but they didn't answer any more questions. They said that they had seeded mankind at one time, and they were all killed off. And then they've been trying to do it again. And then he said, so why don't you do it? And he said, well, they can't reproduce. And so then Reagan said, well, if you can't reproduce, then how did you seed the humans at that one time? And he said, no matter how many questions they asked and how many questions they asked to find out that information, they never got it. The Greys would never tell them.
And then he actually threatened,
or
Reagan threatened that he's like, all right, we're going to go up to the moon ourselves. And because they had bases under the moon, Mars, and under the Earth as well. And then he says,
oh yeah, that's yeah.
This is what's interesting. I'm going to read this part you typed up. It says, well, it sure looked like we went to the moon if it was not for the unmanned satellites taking time pictures and the ability to cut and splice, we would not have a space program at all. So how do you read into that? Was this whole space program fake?
Well, based on how I was at the time, I can't really read into anything. All I could say was I was recording, I was in my mind, I was like, OMG. We didn't go. It was all a hoax. They put it all together.
That's the feeling that you were getting.
Oh man, that is so messed up. Yeah, I was like, that is everything I believed to be true was all of a sudden broken, and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? This is crazy. This can't be true. Crazy.
And then yeah. So then he talks about that he got this technology, the technology they're using for this face-to-face exchange came from the ETs themselves.
Well, I'm going to continue to use the term that is in the treaty, and it's called our out-of-town friends. So, yeah, they've got the technology from, he said, well, the general replied and said, yes. He says, we got this warehouse underground, and it's got all these different things, and everything's radioactive. And I've got this young guy who wants to be able to do everything he can for us. He's the one who's been working on this face-to-face thing that we're using right now. He says he's the one who got it to go from at the onset of it. It was 4-minute delay, and now it's down to 30 seconds. And he knows he can get it down to where the point where it'll be no delays at all. And he wants permission to work on another project where he says that he can create watches that we could talk to each other on, like a Dick Tracy watch, And he said hopefully we'll get to the point where you can make it so you can see each other on it, like we are doing now. And then President Reagan was like, well, oh yeah, I've heard something about this young fella. What is he? I mean, who is he? And give me a little bit of insight on him before I give the go ahead for him to work on something else. So then the general said, well, he's really an egocentric kind of a guy. He's kind of funny in a way, but I mean, I tell him all these ideas of things we want to get to work like, they have. And he listens intently, and then he never says a word. And then the next day he comes back and he tells you all the stuff he's going to do with it. And he makes it all like his own idea. But it was what I said the day before.
And he said,
anyways.
Yeah, and he said, what was his name?
He said his name is Steve. And he's got a company with a fruit logo. And he says, that's all I'm going to say, sir, because I don't want to say anything else. I don't want to say anything to not get him any more work, because he said he wants to really work with it. Then the president says, but the stuff is radioactive, that will affect him in time, won't it? Or affect those who work with him? And then the general said, yes, he knows that, and he does go in with hazmat suits on, and he spends a period of time in there, and he always gets out, and he has other people working on it. They're trying to figure out how to use it and get rid of the radiation, or create the same thing from stuff right here on the Earth that we have, and then make it work. And so then the president goes, oh, okay, I understand. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that, because, I really hate for him to get radiation poison or anything like that. He's the only one who got this program that we're using now to work. And so I'm really in favor of him working on other things. He goes, you know what? There's something that our out-of-town friends have that I really think would be really beneficial to our military in all branches. And he goes, it's I saw it, and I said, oh my, I want that, And of course they're like, we've given it to you, but you have to figure out how to use it. And he says it's the size of a notebook. It's no thicker than a notebook. It's the size of a notebook, and on one side you can talk to somebody else on the other end, face to face, like we're doing now. But it's the size of a notebook. Can you imagine that, General or James? Can you imagine that? He says, and the best part about it, and the reason why I think we need it for our military is because on the backside there's a camera. There's a camera lens, and when our soldiers are in the field, they could just hold this up, and we in our bunkers and our command centers, we could see everything that's going on the battlefield, where everything is, and how we could determine probably the distance, how far something is. And when we have mortars and shells shot over there, we can see where they land, and we can actually reposition where they're to land by what we can see.
Right, great tactical advantage.
Yeah, it's big time technical advantage. He says, I really want this. He said, so you speak to Steve and see what he can get going on that, because I really want that. I really want that.
Yeah, he said here too, with the right people, I foresee this technology being used to replace the phone system as we know it with a smaller mobile device that can go anywhere.
That's exactly what I was just going to say next, because, yeah, he said that it would replace our phone system that we have in place. And he said that device, because you could speak face to face, he was like, that's better than a watch, a Dick Tracy watch. And he said, and eventually the information will get leaked out, and it'll be in the civilian populace of the world, But
and here we are today with the iPhones and all that good stuff. I mean, if you were back then. Well, let me ask you, back then, did you ever think that we would have a cell phone like this with this capability?
No, nope, never thought of it. I never could. I would just say I was a sergeant in the military. I never thought of beyond anything, except for the next job or the next celebration downtown. So, but I never thought we'd have cell phones or anything like that. When they first came out with a cell phone in a bag, and it was, people carried them around. I remember they were like 16 pounds.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's like, what a joke. Who the hell would want to carry that around?
Well, we think about that now, but I remember back in the day, everybody I knew wanted one, but they were so expensive, I couldn't afford one. I was like, I can't afford that, but I wanted one, and I even, in fact, years later, I found one at a yard sale, and I bought it, and then I was carrying it around to show off that I had one, and by then they had smaller ones, they had a little antenna on them. And so that's when phones were getting smaller, and they were wireless, And people one time this guy said, "Why you got that kind of phone? Oh my God, those are outdated, man, and they're heavy."
Yeah, I remember.
And he showed me his phone, and I was like, "Oh crap, you're right." I looked like a fool.
It was a big thing for people to have a phone in their car, those car phones. That was class.
Yep, there you go. That was the other thing, and that was the beginning of, carrying a phone everywhere. That's how I look at it. Yeah,
So basically,
things have definitely changed.
so then basically Ronald's initiative, he wants the Mr. Odom here, James, to start leaking this stuff to the public and try to get the public sector, civilian sector, to start working on this stuff so they can actually advance it quicker, because they have no idea what's going on with this stuff.
Yeah, so he did say that the president did say, he said, I would like this information to be leaked to the different companies in the world that have the capabilities of working on this stuff. It'll have to be an inside person, and they'll leak it somehow to the companies that they work in, and it'll go from there. And that way we're free of it. And then I believe with other countries and other companies working on this technology that we have, it will be produced, and all the bugs will be worked out a whole lot faster than just us trying to do it with what few men we have working for us to do it. Because we've been at it for a long time, and we've only just really got this device here to work that we can speak back and forth, plus all the other things that we have, that let us give us intel, those kind of things. But everything doesn't work exactly as it does for our out-of-town friends. And me, I want it to work just like it does for our out-of-town friends.
Exactly. All right, so I want to read these questions. Okay, so Reagan had, these were Kennedy's unanswered questions, but Reagan figured out a way to reword it so they actually responded to him correctly. And I'm just going to read through a few of these. So some of the questions were, number one, do you have a leader similar to the President of the United States? Answer, yes. Do you breathe oxygen and drink water? Yes, filtered oxygen and water. Have your species assisted the development of past human civilizations? Yes, at different periods. Is it possible to pair a human female and a gray to produce a baby human? Yes, hybrid. How long do you live? Thousands of human lifetimes. Have you ever shared your technology with other humans? Yes. Why do you want the United States of America to stop developing nuclear capabilities? Advanced humans always destroy Earth. So that's really the main reason right there that they're reaching out to the government. This happened when they started dropping the bombs.
Yeah, so that's what, when I said earlier, the president said that he started going back through all the former president's journals and reading through there to find out what he could find out about our out-of-town friends, because he didn't know anything about them. And he had to conduct the treaty with them, this new treaty with them. And he wanted to know all he could. And, he said that back Truman, after Truman dropped the bombs, had the bombs dropped, that's when our out-of-town friends made contact. And then they're against nuclear power and things like that. And the first treaty was with Truman, and he said, Truman asked him a question, well, how many of you are there? And they said 1,000. And so he said, I think, I could be wrong, but, I think what Truman thought was maybe there was only 1,000 of them, period, and no more.
And that was 1,000 grays, not these different alien races, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But, and Reagan learned that there's a whole bunch of them, there's not just the grays, and they were going rampant all over the world and everything, killing animals, taking pieces of them, and all kind of things. And the part is that the grays were going around, abducting people, giving rides, more or less, but it was all to get what they wanted, killing the horses and the cows and the pigs and the sheep and animals and all the creatures in zoos, things like that. They were doing all kind of things just to get a certain part of the animal, or a certain thing, and it kills it, which is a waste. And what it is Reagan found out that the grays were like a restaurant. They would go around taking things from different creatures and people, even humans, and then they would sell it to the other races. So it's pretty, that part, it's like, oh my God, can you believe that? That's horrendous.
It's crazy, but who are we to judge? I mean, there's some sick stuff going on here too. I mean, people like maybe another alien race would consider us eating animals pretty sick too.
Well, I think that's true, but I mean, I know that the animals that we have in our world are on their menu. Not only that, but so are humans. Humans are on their menus. So and it's just different parts of everything. There's Reagan found out that this one race, they like eating bones. That's what they love to eat is bones, and other ones drink blood, and other ones want brains, and different parts of human bodies and animals. That's what they like. That's their delicacy.
It's crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff. I was like, oh gosh, and so like he was really upset because he was like this whole treaty. He wants it to be so sealed and tight that they'll no longer be going around abducting American people on American soil or military bases around the world, nor abducting any persons in the world who have an alliance with the United States. So he's like, I'm trying to protect the American people and all those people that have an alliance with us. That's what we're trying to do here. So we got to come up with some ideas on what we can do to get our out-of-town friends to stop doing what they're doing, because they're killing all kinds of farmers, cattle and sheep and everything just to get pieces so they can sell it to the other races.
You bring up a good point here, because both Reagan and the general James, they're both basically patriots. They're trying to do what they think is best. Reagan's trying to do what's best for the public. And I also looked up a little bit on General William Odom. He's been outspoken for he was against the Iraq war, and he was also against warrantless wiretapping of Americans. So these are exchange between two patriots here, folks. Okay, should we jump to?
Yeah, so I'm sharing this because the general said I could share it and nobody would believe me, and he's right. Nobody ever did believe me. So, but go ahead.
All right, your own kids said they don't believe you, right?
Mm-hmm. Even them. They've got all this technology now. They're like, that's a really good story, Dad.
You bring up a good point here, too, because until I actually seen you face to face and we talked a little bit, well, I shouldn't say face to face, Skype, but we talked and I could actually see you. I knew you were legit. I could tell by your body language, where when I just got sent this, I was like, well, it's a good story. There's nothing I can do about it, but now it's awesome to go forward with this. So do you want to jump to Commander Thor's appearance?
The president found in one of the president's journals, he read in there and he said, they had this guy, all right, this group or whatever it was. They landed near the White House and they were escorted. And the leader of it his name was Commander Thor. And they immediately put him into a place where they could keep an eye on him and everything. And then they started analyzing his clothes and their clothes or whatever it was. But and then after a period of time, Nixon was going around with them. He was taking them around to different places and showing them, the city and barbecues and all kind of stuff. And so he spent a really good amount of time with these. I'll just call them. I know where they're from. They're called Venusians. Okay, so I'll just say that. So Nixon was going around, showing them around, and they went and did all kind of things. And so he got to know them, asked them questions, and they shared things back and forth. And so he was working for the president at the time to find out all he could. And with that, he did. And
yeah,
so when he reported back to
this particular group, Thor, the Venetians, they look just like you and I.
Yeah, that was just it. Reagan said that he said, from the journal notes, he said they were young. They were young looking, maybe in their 20s or so, like that. They were human in every aspect you could think of. He said he didn't see their private parts, but they looked human in every aspect. They ate like us, everything. They talked like us. They looked like us. You could never tell them apart. They had the same height as we did, different sizes. Women were the same. They had one woman with them. So it was pretty cool.
And by the way, folks, I do have on screen, this is supposedly a picture of Thor right here, which is very interesting. Tom Dongo showed me when I was in Sedona at that conference, and he had this on stage. He didn't even say the name.
You got a picture? I never seen a picture of it.
Yeah, if you do a Google search for Valiant Thor, you'll get a picture that comes up, and this is supposedly him.
Wow. Okay.
Well, that right there kind of corroborated your story a little bit.
Well, then after that, he went on to say that, well, no, let me go on. So Nixon did report back to the president, and, and the president apparently said, so what do you think? Should we go ahead and do what they want to do? And what it was apparently this Commander Thor had said that he wanted to bring a change to the human societies so that we would not continue on in the path that we were on, and that was with nuclear energy and bombs and stuff like that. And so what their goal was that we would give up all pursuits of developing this kind of thing, and in doing that, well, Reagan said, if we do that, then those are jobs that people will lose, and what else do you want it to do, besides give up all them jobs? If we give up all those jobs, then we're kind of like go back to the Stone Age, because we're learning how to get electricity and use different things. Well, then he said that Thor said they really could teach people, everybody in the world could stop working and learn how to become at peace with one another, and then together they could achieve anything they wanted to achieve, and not have to use nuclear power and not have wars.
I would be all right with that. I wish we could have did something went that direction.
Yeah, I would like to too, but the powers that be, they want everybody to pay bills and keep everything going like it was, But Nixon said his final word to that was he said, we can't do this. We can't do this because it sounds all good and everything. He told Truman, it sounds all good and everything, but if we do this, in reality, from what I know and hanging out with him, talking with him, it'll end up being angel worship, and there'll be sacrifices and things like that. So I would not go there. And with that, they didn't do it. So we have our society what it is now, So that's all I can tell you about that, because I can't really say anything to any of that other than what I just said and what I heard and I wrote down. So,
but then that brought back to Reagan. He, in the first 100 days of his administration, Commander Thor appeared in a staff meeting. Oh
yeah, that thing. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. So Reagan said, he says, we're in the room with everybody at the table. We're all talking, we're discussing everything. Having a meeting like normal. And he says, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Thor appears in the room. And he says, "Hello, humans." Oh my gosh, something like that. He says, he greeted everybody in a really loud voices, and our president said, it scared the bejesus out of everybody. We all jumped out of our skins because nobody's in there but all of us, and we're all talking about different issues. And boom, he just comes in and boisterous, really loud, And I told him, I said, you cannot be in here. You have no right to be in here. And he said, I've come to talk about what I've come to talk about before and give you another chance, that kind of a thing. And then Reagan said, you're not allowed, you're not allowed in here. And from now on, don't come in here like that. And he says, he called security, but security never came.
That's interesting. So how did... They must have had some telepathy powers or something there. They could just make the security, because Secret Service would be all over you left and right.
Yeah, I would say that too. And I would have thought they would have had Secret Service in the room, but I don't know. I've never been there, never seen it. But I was like, wow, how? And he emphasized. He said, I called for security. I picked up the phone, called security, but they never came. And then Thor left.
So at this point, then Does Reagan know exactly where they're from? Did he tell him what planet?
Oh yeah, that's why I said earlier. Nixon found out that they were from Venus.
Venus.
So they're known as Venetians, and he found out that they don't live on the outside; they live inside the planet.
And
Just
was that a different dimension, or is it our same dimension? Can they shift out of dimensions?
It's our dimension. They live in our dimension. They're not in another dimension.
That's interesting because you think Venus would be really, what do they say? It's really hot there. Well, I guess they say. Who am I listening to? NASA.
Yeah, exactly. Because after I heard all this, I was like, OMG, there's people living inside our planets out there. Oh my, and here they got a ball out there. It's all ice, kind of thing, frozen. I'm like, how the heck does somebody live inside of that thing?
Right.
And then, of course, they're living right here in our Earth as well.
Yep.
And that was that part where I was telling you that they were digging in New Mexico, and it was out in the desert area, and they were digging, and because they're putting in a military installation, and they're digging out the ground like I guess they normally do, and they came across this area where all of a sudden the ground opened up right in front of them like a sinkhole, and then hours later, I guess, I don't know how long it took, but there was like smoke coming out of it. And so then they got a crew of people to go down in there on some kind of cherry picker. And cherry picker is the word I'm using, but it's like it would, instead of going up, it'd go down, like on a little elevator you'd stand in or something like that. And they went down, and there was a couple of military guys with weapons went down as well. And they saw some grays, and they freaked out, and they shot him. And in return, one of the grays took out some and shot back, and it like melted his guy's hand off. And so he got back up to the top and got out of there. And Reagan said, this was our first intergalactic mini war with the grays, and it could have went better, but it cost us a lot to resolve that whole issue.
Right, and the story you're talking about is Phil Schneider, and he was working on that Dulce base.
Yes, he did mention his name. Yes,
Dulce, New Mexico base.
Yeah. So that's it. So that was it. So so then that's where the president said, we had a meal with Margaret Thatcher, and we found out that over there right now we found out they're having a swine flu, which is pig, the pigs. Nobody over there can eat pig anymore. When all our troops come back, they're not going to be able to give blood and, things like that because they're over there. He says,
did you skip?
Here we are.
Before we go off this too far, because I know this is kind of transitioning to another part. I still want to finish up with Thor here. So he did stay at the Pentagon, right?
Oh, wow. We're past that. We're at the part we're almost getting ready to where Reagan took a ride.
Well, I just wanted to let the audience know that he did stay at the Pentagon for some time.
Yeah. I see. I went blank when I said, they landed near the White House or near something, and I couldn't remember what the thing is because on my notes here, I'm lost. So like when you ask me a question, it may be 3 pages down from where I'm at now.
Yeah, we are kind of skipping around here, but I want to make sure we cover it all. And we are getting kind of long here.
So go back to that then.
So he was staying at the Pentagon, and then his agreement, well, he was, what was this, over a 3-year he stayed at the Pentagon?
I want to say it was the Pentagon, yes. And he stayed there 31 or 32 months, something like that.
It was like quite some time, and the whole idea was to try to come up with an agreement to have an exchange. Well, we wanted propulsion technology so we could explore space, but they weren't willing to offer that.
That is exactly right. We wanted propulsion. We wanted whatever they have that would take us to the stars. That's what we wanted.
So in the meantime, while he was at the Pentagon, they took his suit and doing all these tests and stuff on it. They figured it couldn't be damaged. It only weighed a couple ounces. They tried lasers, acid, and the whole shebang. It was very protected.
Everything. And even Thor would not even tell him what it was made out of because, we wanted to make some our own. If we had those, he said, if we had those kind of suits, you know, you could shoot somebody and nobody get hurt. You know, you'd be protected completely.
And you could see how that
they
could
would not give us
affect war like terrible.
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If one side had all those suits and the other side didn't, well, that's tough to be like up the creek. So, yeah.
Okay, do
so
we want to talk about the landing?
You
want to talk about the landing on the White House lawn, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just now going to transition to that.
All right, sounds good.
Go. So after that incident inside that office where they were all meeting, and then the security never showed up, then he did show up one more time, and this time it was, I don't know what time it was, I forget right now, but he said he showed up and he told Reagan that he said, you know, I'd like to take you for a ride anywhere you want to go. You'll see the inside of our craft. You know, there was a time that you said you'd like to, so. I've gotten permission, so if you're ready, we can go. And apparently it was early in the morning, and so Reagan went out with him, and I guess he had a security team with him, and it was on the lawn where he was living at the White House. And he went out and he says, "So where is it?" And then and Thor pushed something, and all of a sudden it appeared. It was right there in front of them.
So right there, folks, they did land on the White House lawn that we always wanted them to do.
Yep. It said they went up a little staircase into it, and it was really dark. And he said they sat in some chairs, kind of like chairs, and they strapped in. And Thor sat in front of them, and it had a big screen that lit up like a big old flat screen. It was curved, you know, and it had all kind of lights on it and spinny things. It's probably like a control panel, but it was a computer control panel, you know. And he touched some things, and then pretty soon he said there was a humming noise, kind of a sound. And then he said, Thor turned around and said, "So where do you want to go? Where would you like to go?" And he said, "Well, Nancy and I have always wanted to go to Machu Picchu." And they said, "Okay." And he turned around and off they went. He said it was like 15 minutes later, they were at the top, and they kind of landed at this one place on the top. And he says, we went out, and he says, I really didn't go far because it was really steep, you know, going down. And where we're at, he said the sun was coming up. You could see the sun coming up and shining just enough light that I could see all of Machu Picchu from where I was at. And I could see from hundreds of miles, it seemed like, you know, and everything, of course, from where we were at our viewpoint was everything was downhill. And he said, I didn't really want to go downhill. Being the age I am, I could get hurt. So I just stood there and took it all in. And then
that's interesting because you think
based on time, we're going to have to head back.
Mr. Valiant Floor, Valiant Thor, you could go anywhere and you choose another place on Earth. Why would Reagan do that? Like, I would want to go to the moon, maybe Mars, check out, maybe even go way in deep
space. Same thing. I thought the same thing. I was like, what? I want to go. I would go to the moon.
Right. Go on the back and see the bases.
Take me to your planet. Take me to Saturn. You know, take me somewhere. If this thing can go as fast as you say it is, and take me some place far away. Why go to some place? It's on the Earth. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. I
kind of wonder if maybe some security personnel said, well, don't leave the Earth or something like that, just in case something happens. But by that time, they really didn't have control of the situation anyway. But they obviously trusted him enough to do it.
True. They trust him enough. Yeah, I guess you're right. So my whole thing was like, you know, although I was thinking, what? Are you stupid? You know, come on, you can go anywhere.
That's exactly what I thought when I read it. I was like, come on.
But I'm not in his shoes, so I can't, you know, it's in hindsight, I look at it and I still say to myself, man.
But he did talk about going out far enough where he could see the whole North America.
So when they lifted off, you know, when they lifted up, they went up straight up. You know, apparently they were going straight up, and Commander Thor could angle the craft in such a way that you could see down on the ground. You can see the White House as they rose up, but it was dark out. It was pitch black outside, right? But yet they could see everything like it was daytime, which I thought was impressive.
It is.
So they rose up and they went over the city, and they kept going higher and higher and higher and higher, and he's like, can this thing really go fast? And he's like, oh yeah. And so then boom, he went zipping across the city, and then he stopped, and Reagan was like, oh my God, I thought we were going to like be slammed up against the wall and be smushed, that kind of thing. But he says, when it came to the stop, there was like this, some kind of a inertia feeling, you felt something, but yet you didn't really move. It was different. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'd like to do that. Okay. I wouldn't go to Milko Picchu. I'd go somewhere else.
Yep.
Oh, and we got to talk about the Los Alamos thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, the
New Mexico. That's where that Phil guy, he that place, and so that's where.
Yeah, we touched upon that. You want to hit
that's
that?
That's where the cloning is. That's
okay.
Where the cloning is.
Because there was another important part about that base. I believe it was.
Yeah, so they're building a base underground to do all the cloning, and instead of going around taking people from all over the world and getting these parts they want to eat, we're gonna be cloning everything right there for them, and they can get their own pieces.
And
right
this way they had their own. Well, if anybody knows, I did a presentation on here earlier about the Dulce base in New Mexico. It goes down 7 floors, supposedly, that we know about. And the farther down you go, the less control the humans have, and the aliens have control at the bottom. And then they got these vats with human parts in there that they use. It's just really crazy stuff. But backing up real quick to Schneider's aftermath, Reagan said when they had that shooting down there, he said clearly both sides were startled in the aftermath. The Greys said that they are peaceful species, and had the humans not fired upon them, neither side would have suffered. So was it just, it might have just been a miscommunication thing that happened there, but when you hear about these parts, body parts in these vats and cages.
Oh, yeah. Well, like the Snyder guy, he didn't know what he was getting into going down there. He was the engineer on the job, and so he had to go down there and find out what's going on down there, because you need to figure out how to fill in the hole, because they're trying to put a facility there, So going down there, yeah, he was startled. He never seen a grain in his life. So this was the first time, and seeing something like that, I don't know, they started shooting. They were scared.
It's understandable. And they took him out. He was a whistleblower, and they suicided him.
Oh, yeah. I did look up. Yeah, one time. Oh, they did?
Oh, yeah. They claimed suicide, and wrapped a catheter around his neck.
Oh, God, that's messed up.
Sick people that are running the show here.
Well, yeah, there's a whole lot of sick people. I mean, the things that these two leaders talked about that goes on in our government, I was like, oh my gosh, it's messed up. But as long as we don't know, everybody lives their happy life.
That's a good point. Then you also had here that Reagan, the Greys were actually trying to get us militarized because there's supposed to be this alien war that's supposed to take place. I mean, this gets really deep. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, it goes so deep. You don't know how deep. They said that the Greys said that there is they call it an alien race that is 3/4 times bigger than all the races that are out in our solar system. And they say that they're a mean, they're like, they take over. Wherever they go, they just kill everybody and everything, and they take over. And so all the aliens that are, all our out-of-town friends apparently, that are out in our solar system, and the ones that live on the Earth, they're afraid. So they expect that eventually, sometime in the future, of course, when this was going on with President Reagan, he thought it could be any time imminent. That's why he started that Star Wars thing. They expect that there's going to be a war eventually, where this force that's out there, that's bigger than anything, is going to come towards the Earth, and try to take over, and they want our military to be ready to help them fight. Okay? From the Earth and from space. They want us to help them fight against that other force, or that other alien race, they call it.
And that's interesting because this is coming from the Gray's side, not Thor's side.
Excuse me. Yes. Thor never mentioned anything like that. Never. Because it's the Greys who've been doing all the talking with, doing the treaties. I kind of think Thor, from what I read, what President Reagan wrote about and talked about, I kind of think Thor came down and tried to do his own kind of a treaty at one time, probably. That's what it seemed like, to change our ways and not work and everybody become friends and work together. I don't know if that was a treaty or not, but
yeah, he wanted
all
us
I know is
in exchange for, even he said, healing all ailments and
Yeah,
diseases.
they had Thor said, from what I wrote down, Thor said, we have every known cure for every disease that humans suffer from. And so with that, Nixon, I remember Nixon said it in that, he said, that means there'll be a lot of medical people out of work.
See, that would have been all right. They could have just transitioned and did something else, and we could have been so much farther along. But
yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, do you want to get into the meat? So there wasn't going to be enough meat for the military. This was just in the UK, right? For Christmas?
This was November. Yeah, the meat. This goes to the I got to finish up with that Snyder guy.
Okay, go for it.
And okay, so I need to go into that with that's the lead into Margaret Thatcher and the pigs, which I started talking about, and then it goes into the cloning. And then it goes into building the Los Alamos facility that will be connected to the aliens, and we'll have military personnel there, and we'll go ahead and do all the cloning and give them all the things that they want. And so the human clones, they can do whatever they want with.
But then you were getting into, there wasn't going to be enough meat for Christmas.
Yeah, that comes in because with Margaret Thatcher, and then that's where General talks about it. We got all this cattle out there shitting everywhere. Didn't know what the hell we're going to do with them. And now we are the pigs and the cows. And now we have some place for them to go. We can have them butchered and send through different channels, and we'll get them over to our troops. That kind of thing.
So was this only over in the UK where they shipped this cloning meat?
No, it was all of Europe because
none in the US, as far as you know.
No, not. It might have only been in the UK because I don't think they had the EU in place at the time.
But it was made in the US and then shipped over.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I'm just trying to put some puzzle pieces together that people may or may not have eaten some cloned meat from their grocery store.
I really think that all of it's cloned now. I really do. After that, I was like, oh my God, I bet everything's cloned.
It's crazy. And, how do you even tell the difference? A lot of that stuff, now they're talking about 3D printing meat. Crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, you think about it. You can't tell the difference between the meat with all the sauce and everything you put on it. People could be eating the same cloned meat over and over and over and over and over and over, It was the whole thing with doing the cloned meat overseas was to plug a problem, the solution for the swine flu. You send cloned, butchered hogs meat over there. That takes care of your hams, your bacon, everything that people use for Thanksgiving and Christmas. You send cloned, butchered beef over there. That takes care of all your beef, all that, hamburgers, everything like that. Takes care of all that. And you save the government a little bit of money. You're not buying it local, things like that.
Right. All right, I want to hit a few more things here, then we got to kind of wrap up. So we'll just go through these other things really quickly. Reagan was talking to the general about they have these underground systems, interstate highways, and these entrances are actually in plain sight. Like you might see a gas station and then there might be a door to go down to them.
Yeah. So General Odom, he was talking to the president, and he's like, since we're sharing things here, I got to be honest with you. One of the greatest people I've admired all my life was Ike. And he had this experience where he wanted to go across the United States and be able to go from one East Coast to the West Coast in the most quickest way possible, in case we ever had an invasion. And so could you get troops there and quickly enough, So he found that, you could go on the roads that we had back then, but then eventually they ran out when you got close to the West. And so he had to travel over the desert and things like that. And so his determination was it wasn't viable. If we ever got attacked on the ground, we would never get enough troops anywhere in that area or, deployed in time. But then during the war, he saw in Germany that Hitler had created or had people create underground Autobahn systems. And he saw that firsthand, and he said he liked it. He said, I want that. I want that. That is exactly what we need. That will plug that problem that I've always thought about. How do we get troops to where we need them really fast? Because you can't do it on top of the surface of the United States with all the traffic there is. And we didn't have much traffic back then, if you think about it. So General said, Ike was amazing because he came back to the United States, and when he became president, he wanted to go ahead and have all the roads in America redone, going from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, and had to get funding for that. And at the same time, while he was getting all that funding and having the roads created, he was having roads built underneath the ground, the Autobahn system, and all the way across. And so that was to be used for military deployment to get them from one side of the United States all the way to the other side. And if it's being an Autobahn, there was no speed limit, and so on and so on. And then he said that what they did was at every so many miles or something like that, they had gas stations for the vehicles to be able to fuel up, and facilities to go to the bathroom and things like that, and even had other places where you could actually stay the night. And, you would access them from a gas station above on the surface, and you would access it from there. And you could go, if you worked there, you would go down an elevator, and you would go down there and you'd work there, and then you'd leave that way. If when the gas trucks came in, they would put gas into the tanks, but it would also fill up the tanks down below. So you were using the same facility, and nobody would know. And it has worked out ever since. And he said, and it's in plain sight. All the entrances are in plain sight. It's just that they have something in front of them, to say, it needs repair, or it's under repair, closed for repair, or something like that. But each one of our DOD contractors and individuals that ship or that take things here and there for us, they know where the openings are. And then we do have some that are on the side of mountains that have a security, and nobody gets in unless you have a particular type of ID.
All right. So we've gone on for quite a while here. I kind of want to get this wrapped up. So obviously we didn't get to everything, folks. There's a lot here to cover, and we may have you back on again, and you can actually maybe you talked about maybe getting questions from the audience. Is that something you're willing to do?
I'm willing to do that. As far as if I can answer it, I can answer it, based on what I know from that, copying all that stuff down. But I can't read into a lot of things, I can't say what they were thinking or anything like that.
Sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask him a question, leave it under the comments in this video. I'll look at it, or you can call the phone number here if you really want to try to explain something. Try to keep it short and to the point. And that's my voicemail for the K2D4 network. Just leave it there. I'll get it. And next time I'll meet with Mr. Vilt, and we'll play those, and then we can get those read on air. So let's wrap this up now. Okay, so the exchange was done. The phones went off. So how did this thing end? He just said, all right, you took your papers?
The way it ended was, okay, so they said their goodbyes. You know, they said their goodbyes, and the general said, he said, sir, in order for me to get everything that we discussed into place so that it gets expedited as fast as possible, I'm going to need you to courier as fast as you can some blank executive orders signed by you. And then the other replied, well, you know, I'm not really allowed to do that. That's not really a good idea. He said, however, you are my friend and I trust you. So how many do you want? And the general said, I think I need about a couple dozen. You know, he says, I'm not a good typer, you know, but I have to have a whole crew doing everything I want. And if you can't have a mess up, you can't do it. You can't do whiteout, those little whiteout things. You can't do that on these. It has to be exact. So I need a couple dozen, you know, and I might need more after that. Yes, if you'll just get those signed and get them to me as fast as you can, I'll be right on it. And the president said, well, how long do you think it'll take? He said, I'm as soon as I get off here with you, I'm going to start. So I would say I give it a good 2 weeks, and I should have a lot of progress and have those ones all back to you. Now, if I don't have anything finished after that done, like I said, I'll work to get it done. And how soon do you think you can get those documents to me? And he said, as soon as I go upstairs, I'll sign them, and then I'll have them courier out and on a jet over to you right away. And then they said their goodbyes, and then the screen went off, and then the general turned on the lights, and he said, okay, you can come out now. And it took me a little while to get out of there because I was really sore from being in, you know, laying in that position for a long time. And I came out with 5 of those yellow pads that are really long, notepads, and they were filled out. I did front and back on every page.
Insane.
Oh my God, my hands was so hurting and numbish, you know. Oh man, and my joints were hurting.
Yeah. So how long do you think you were under there?
Felt like 3 hours.
So you couldn't go to the bathroom for that 3 hours? Did you have to go?
Could not go to the bathroom. No, not at all.
Wow.
Nothing. I mean, I'll be honest, there was a time that my hand hurt so bad that I quit writing for like a half hour, I would say. It seemed like a long time, but I just had to let my hand lay there on the ground doing nothing, and eventually the pain went away, and then I could start writing again.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you leave this room. You say
no, I didn't leave the room.
Oh,
so what happened next was the general said, he looked at my stuff and he says, Sergeant Vilt, I am required by law to type up everything that you wrote down and then use that as your debrief. But I can tell you right now, I am a 2-finger typer and I make a lot of mistakes. And he looked through the drawer in the desk that he was at and he said, and I only have one little piece of paper of white out, and I make all kinds of mistakes. So I'm going to tell you what, I will not type up any of those that you have. Instead, here's a piece of white paper. Write 3 things on here, and we'll use that as your debrief. Think about what you want to write on there, because whatever's on there, you'll have to swear to it, and you can never, ever talk about it. I said, so, okay, sir, so you're saying if I write about anything that I've written over here in these tablets, then I can never, ever talk about it? That is correct, he said. I said, so if I write something that's not in any of these, I can talk about it or tell people? He said, you can do whatever you like, but I can guarantee you they're not going to believe you. It'd be too far-fetched. And I said, okay, well, let me write some things. So I wrote three sentences. One was like, you know, I bet the president misses talking to his wife. I don't know the other 2 because I didn't have a copy of that, but I just know that first one. And so he said, okay, this is your debrief. All right. You can no longer talk about these while you're in the service. When you get out of the service, you can talk about this, and you can talk about those 5 notebooks and anything you want on them. But I can tell you right now that nobody's going to believe you. They'll think you're a fruitcake, because we have enough people working in our government who are hecklers, liars, cheaters, everything. And they will come out of the woodwork to make you look stupid, dumb, and psycho. So that's why nobody's ever going to believe you.
But by the way, here, when he had you raise your hand and swear, he just said, "Swear solemnly to never speak about these 3 written statements while I'm an active member of the military, United States military."
While as an active member of the military. However, I did say, can I share what's in these notebooks with other people, like when I get back to my unit? He said, sure, go right ahead. He said, but know this: if it starts to become a big buzz and it goes outside your installation, I will send somebody to squash it. Do you understand me? And when that person comes, it has to come to an end. But so I would say to you, it's not a good idea to tell anybody, you can probably tell it to a couple people, close friends you have, but I wouldn't tell it to everybody. But just so you know, if it gets outside your base, I'm going to have to squash it. Okay? Because this implements me as well. I'm letting you take it out of here. So I want you to take those pads, wrap them up in your field jacket, and you're going to carry your stuff out. I'm going to escort you out so you won't be searched on your way out. And you take those back to your unit. And when you get a chance, you mail them back to your dad somewhere in the States and ask him to just put them in the attic for safekeeping. And then one day when you're really old and your grandkids find it, they'll read it, and then they'll know something that only a few people in America know about.
So when did you transfer from written to typing it out? You got copyright 2017 on here. Is that when you went from the actual paper to the computer transcript?
Oh no, let me. I typed it out when I eventually typed it all up while in 1997 attending a community college. I took a language arts class, and in there we had to write a paper, 3,000 word essay thingamajigger. And while I was in the, they call it the learning lab, they had a bunch of computers in there. I brought one pad in at a time, and I began to type out exactly what it said, word for word, and then add in the periods and the commas. That's all I did. And that's when I began to type it out. And I'm glad I did, because several years later, in the 2000 time frame, when we had a bunch of hurricanes, and I had been down there, the roof flew off my dad's house, and everything in it flew out as well, and all my notes, all those papers flew out. Most of them, they all got wet, and some of them ripped off and flew down the street, and some of them disappeared. But I gathered up as much as I could. But it was messed up, terribly messed up. Some of the ink smeared and everything, and then when it dried out, some words you couldn't even see. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I typed it up.
Yeah, you would have lost a lot of history there.
Well, it lost a lot.
Yeah, so Mr. Vilt, thank you so much for coming forward on this. Is this something that you're willing to publish maybe in the future on the internet so people can actually read it word for word?
Yes. I've sent it out to over 100 people already. But yes, this is something I would like to. Yes, as long as I remain anonymous, I guess.
Am I able to publish it on my site so people can read it, or do you want me to hold off?
I'd like you to hold off.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming forward. This has been great. This is a big story. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have questions, please either call that voicemail, leave a message, or put it down in the comments of this video, and I'll get those together. And we'll have Mr. Vilt on again in the future to talk about and respond to those questions.
So if anybody has questions, I think it's a good idea, because if you want to know about full disclosure, whatever you've seen, there's no such thing as full disclosure other than what I experienced.
So with that being said, I thank you guys for joining me. It did kind of go long here, but this is a big story, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. On sale now at the K2D4 Network store. We have a wide range of shirts to get the message out to the public. The Disclosure Now with Fisty, break through the wall of suppression. End the cover-up with UFO tea. Let the public know that there is more going on than we know. And it is time to bring out the suppressed technologies and advance civilization once and for all. The signature, talk is cheap, it's time for disclosure. The Disclosure/Now tea. Very simple but very effective message. It is time to change the world, and let's begin right now. And last but not least, the official K2D4 Network shirt. Support the broadcast and get yours at K2D4Network.com.